Today's topic is pretty controversial, but at the same time, it is very important and extremely relevant to a lot of you that I'm speaking to right now. So let's dive in. You may have heard the term spiritual abuse. You may not have. It's not a super popular term, but you've definitely heard the term narcissism. So how can the two be related? Can one be fueling the other? And I believe absolutely. Let's take a look at how. When you're looking at the character traits of a narcissist, and that can be an officially diagnosed narcissist, or it can be a person that just struggles with narcissistic tendencies, behaviors, etc. There's going to be something very obvious that's present, and that is pride. And when it comes to the church, I'm going to say something that's going to cause offense to some of you. I only say this because I grew up in church. I've attended church for decades, so I have become extremely familiar with church culture. I don't say this to bash church in any way. I say it in hopes to reach out to those who have been hurt by the church. There are a lot of great churches out there, and there's some that have done some significant damage. So in this specific aspect of church culture that I'm going to talk about unacceptable sins and acceptable sins. The unacceptable sins are the obvious ones that everybody knows you are not supposed to touch with a 10-foot pole. Make sure that you stay away. If you want to keep your reputation here at this church, if you want to fit in with these people, you're going to avoid those kind of sins. But the problem is, then there's the acceptable sins. And those have just kind of been woven into church culture. They're classified as normal, and they can be used by spiritual leaders, by pastors, by mentors, and it's not a problem at all. And the number one that I have seen in my life personally is pride. And that is the root of narcissistic tendencies. So when you're looking at a person that has dealt with spiritual abuse, where they have tried to go and meet with God, but the people that have represented God, whether in a formal church setting or outside of it, have actually turned that person away from God and pushed them away from God because of misusing the Bible or God's name or being a hypocrite. Let's narrow it down to a few just to get more specific. In church culture, it is not unusual to put somebody up on a pedestal, whether it be a pastor, a worship leader, or a special speaker, a prophet, whatever you want to call it. It is very normal in church culture to revere other people, to raise them up above others and make them feel like they're special, like they have a special access to God, like they have the most knowledge of anybody else concerning the Bible. Maybe they went out and did miracles in God's name, but whatever it is, there is still a very normal tendency in the church to elevate that person, to make them feel like they are grand. So unfortunately, it's good breeding ground for narcissistic behavior. And this doesn't even have to only apply to church leaders. It can even apply in a parent-child relationship. It can even apply in a marriage between a husband and a wife, where a scripture can get distorted, a verse can get distorted, and that person believes that they are there to be served, that they are higher and more above the other people around them, that they deserve respect but don't have to give any in return. And unfortunately, it's just kind of become a normal thing. I'm really going to get myself in trouble here, aren't I? It's not like every person in position is going to be a narcissist. Of course, there's going to be people in positions of authority and power in the church that are not narcissists. Of course, there's going to be people that can still remain humble and that can serve and love people well. Another one to look out for is when a person can't be wrong. Maybe somebody comes in with a different way of interpreting a verse, or maybe somebody comes in with a different kind of experience or a different angle or perspective on something. And when the person with narcissistic tendencies gets challenged in that way, instead of just wanting to be respectful and truly hear and value what the other person is saying, they can get stuck in this rut of, oh, no, I am right. I'm the authority. I know, and how dare you challenge me? When that person can't be wrong, that is the dangerous narcissistic flag to look out for. And there have been people that have been put into positions in the church that definitely live this out. And what this can kind of create is our third point, which is the need for the spotlight to be on them. Sometimes if a person that is in a spiritual position of authority feels like their position is being threatened, that somebody else is coming alongside, maybe they're more talented, maybe they have more experience, or they want to just have a fresh new perspective and look on things, and that person feels very threatened and challenged because somebody else is coming in that's new, and that spotlight's getting taken off of them and being put on the new person, and they can't handle that, that's not a good sign. I call all these things out not to make anybody feel like they're being condemned or like they're horrible people. I'm calling them out really to reach out to those of you who have been hurt by the church, who have seen this and witnessed this in action in the church and feel like, well, if that's the way church is, why in the world would I want to be a part of it? Please just know that people that are in the church do not always represent God's heart accurately. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wait a second, that's describing me. I'm acting like a narcissist in the church. Oh my goodness. There's usually two types of responses. One is, I want to get right. I don't want to live like this anymore. That's horrible. I don't want to be damaging people or turning them away from God. I want to bring people to God. How can I change? And that is an excellent place to be. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to say sorry, to humble yourself, and to want to really work on things and do better. Then there's the other type of response, which is not so good. And that is, how dare you challenge me? No, I know I'm right. I earned this place in the church. I know I'm a spiritual authority, and you have no right to tell me otherwise. Please know that I'm just bringing awareness to this topic, not to beat anybody over the head or to judge anybody. It's really to reach out to those of you that have been personally and deeply affected by this, that you've been damaged and you want nothing to do with church, or you have a different view of God because of the narcissistic abuse you've experienced in the name of church, God, and the Bible. Admitting that there's narcissism in the church, that's not a fun thing to do. That's not something I'm exactly excited to talk about. But it's too important to ignore, and it's done too much damage. We have to speak about it. You are not alone. Your experience is not isolated. And that as within every culture, there are things that are going to be wrong and toxic and need to change and grow and be better at, including the church. So what do you even do with this kind of information? For one, be aware of it in your own self, that you're not falling into this trap. If you're in a position of authority over somebody else, that you're not abusing that position. You're not allowing yourself to be put on a pedestal where you feel like you deserve the limelight, that you deserve to be treated specially above everybody else, where it's not inflating your sense of self. And for those who are still active and involved in the church, to be aware of it and to not be afraid to lovingly and gently call things out when they are damaging and toxic to other people, even if it's a part of church culture. I'm Jamie Lynette. I'm a professional life coach that helps people recover from spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, and narcissistic abuse. If spiritual abuse is something that you have been directly impacted, please check out my other spiritual abuse video. In the name of not accepting narcissistic abuse in the church as normal, as part of the culture, and as okay, and wanting to build healthy, humble, and loving relationships in the church, let's move forward together.